All right, Mr. Clerk, can we please have the roll?
Yeah, Councilmember Enos. Here. Councilmember Hammoud. Councilmember Abraham. Here. Councilmember Paris. Here. Councilmember El Sawafi. Councilmember Herrick.
Here.
Council.
Opportunity to speak with the clerk and send out some pointed questions that we had. So I know that there's a lot of people, I guess, chatter questions and so on and so forth. What I can say is that we had a lot of concerns regarding election processes that we felt was warranted for us to have this meeting. The way I operate and the way I do things, I contacted the Mr. Clerk via phone, and I had pointed a letter that I wrote the questions that we had, sent it to him well in advance, about a week or so or more. Before I sent them, I did send around to my colleagues to ask if they had anything to add. We just had little things to add. So for my colleagues, I want to stay pointed on these questions and not to veer off on them. Unfortunately, folks, the city of Dearborn has not spared any expense on elections. And the concern is that if you have 2 million people, because I know there's a lot of people that might have questions, why are we doing this or what's going on? We have 2 million people vote in the state of New York and they get finished by 10 p.m. And we have 27,000 people and we don't finish till 4:30, 4:40 in the morning. I think it's warranted questions, that's one. Plus the questions that we have, they're very pointed. There was issues where precincts were shut down for times, and that's why we're gonna go through it. So I wanna stay close to these questions as possible so that we can go through this to find out how can we avoid these issues. As people are well aware, the election is over, but we have a gubernatorial election next year. And we also have a state rep race, state senate race, so there's many elections next year that are happening. And we wanna make sure that we get to the proper people. And we want to make sure that we're funding it properly as well, because I know there was also questions about funding, which if anybody would like to check meetings, they can see that I asked several times and made many points that we pay over $250 a day. Do we need any more people? No, we do not. No, we do not. And then we have the results that we had. So for me, I think that it's warranted that we had this meeting, and I sent out the questions ahead of time. This is not a gotcha or a Facebook or anybody to hide behind keyboards. I think the election speaks clearly for itself on where the residents of the city of Dearborn feel that the city is going and that they're happy with or not happy with the way it's going. But we also have a job to do, and that's to make sure that we ask these questions and make sure that we get to the bottom of it so it doesn't happen again. So that's why we're here tonight. The lights on there, going back, looks like it's off. So we're going to start with, and I know, Mr. Clerk, I do appreciate it. I believe you did send some of these in writing, but we're going to ask you for the public meeting because we have to operate in public. I do appreciate that you did send a writing that you answered most of these questions. I was unfortunately unable to read the email, but even if I did, because we have to operate in the public, we have to ask these questions and have it in the public. Then again, for the residents, if anyone has any questions or comments, this is a special meeting study session, so there is some leeway to take some information if somebody has questions, but I'm really trying to get to the bottom of what happened, how can we avoid this in the future. So currently, the first topic is the bullet point we have is the incorrect absentees ballots issued or mailed to voters. So Mr. Clerk, I know we had talked about this before, but would you like to address that point first one, and then we'll make sure that we have questions asked by the council.
Okay, so the question that I had here was the process of following the reissue, but would you like me to start with at the beginning? And
I think that, no, I appreciate that, but first, the issue is that how did we get the wrong ballot? Because from what I understand, I can say what I understand, but it was from my conversation with you.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that the people hear that, because a lot of people like to say different things that don't know the truth. And I want to make sure that we get to the truth of the soul. Let's make sure how we got it. So let me say, and then you can verify, yes, that's correct or not correct.
Okay.
So we can be on the same page. So we had a gentleman that applied for the council and withdrew his name in the proper time and came in and signed that he wants to withdraw. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then that was sent to the county, and the county verified that he can be removed from the ballot, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Then the county sent us the ballot and said you need to proofread this, is that correct?
Yes.
And on that ballot, the gentleman's name was still on there, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So it wasn't a spelling of a name, it was a number, 14 verse 13, correct?
Yeah, there were 13, there was an added name, the 14th name instead of just 13 names.
Okay, so it's not like you had to check every one of the 13 to see if their names were spelled right. You could have just seen 14 verse 13 and said there's a mistake. Is that
Yes.
accurate?
Yes.
Okay, and whose job is that in your office?
I do that, and my deputy does that, and my election supervisor. We all three look at those.
So, and just so we know, so we do have the deputy here.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. And
The election
the
supervisor.
election supervisor.
Yeah.
So 3 sets of people looked at that and didn't notice that there was one additional person.
That is correct.
Okay, so that's the truth, folks, because we got a lot of people that coming up with, oh, what is it? No, you have 14 verse 13, it's a simple number. So once that happened, it's no longer the county's responsibility, we didn't proof it, and then the ballots got printed, correct?
Yeah, after it got to us, it was no longer the county's responsibility, correct?
After you had the opportunity to.
After
proof
we
it.
had the opportunity to look at it, yeah, yep.
Okay, so once that happened, then we sent out the ballots. 9,000 is what I understand, is that correct?
About 9,500.
9,500.
Yep.
All right, does any of my colleagues have any questions to this stage so far? Councilman Abraham? Oh, I. Go ahead.
So, my question comes from sort of my background in the process of continuous improvement. So my question is, what controls have you put in place to prevent erroneous ballots from going out again in the future?
Yeah, and I appreciate that question, because obviously this is a mistake that was embarrassing to us and to our department, and we don't like to see those things going out, and it doesn't give confidence to the public either. So we have discussed it, and we have decided that all 3 of us should be in the room at the same time looking at this and asking each other's questions back and forth on the issue. Do we have the gentleman for mayor? Yes, check. Do we have 2 people for mayor? Yes, check. Do we have the council? The number of people for council and the names, all 3 of us in the room at the same time instead of each of us doing it separately. We think that we can do our own checks and balances between the 3 of us, and this would never happen again.
Yeah, my only final thought on that is I would suggest that there's a process that documents that
Okay.
review.
Sure.
That each responsible person can sign off, that they have done their control review, and that they're actually putting their signature on a document that says that they completed their review to the best of their ability.
Okay.
That way you have long-standing documentation of the process and
Yep.
the review. And you have control as the supervisor. You're obviously the clerk of that department, and the buck stops with you. And it's
Absolutely.
nice to be able to say, we did this on this date, this person did it on this date, and it got me. And for any after the fact review by any authority, that to me that's a strong control.
I agree. Thank you.
Councilman Enos?
Yeah. I think Councilman Abraham asked my question, but all 3 should check, or all 3 should sign, not just one signature on that.
Okay.
That was kind of what Councilman Abraham just said.
All right.
That's my suggestion.
Okay.
All right, and then Councilman Pierce, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could, thank you.
Of course.
I just wanted to ask then, just so I clearly understand this, once again, when we got the ballots back from the Wayne County Clerk's office, did they have a process to go ahead and review, or did they have the same information too that we did, that in fact that 14th candidate had withdrawn?
Yes, they received 2 pieces of information, the form that they sent us that we have to send to them when somebody withdraws, and at the end of the filing period, They had that form that we emailed to them immediately, and then we sent them the documentation that the gentleman had signed saying that he withdrew. So, again, the buck stopped with me, but the question that I did ask was, how was the name on there in the first place? And I don't know their process. I really don't know the process that they had. But yeah, we thought it was a shared responsibility, but again, we had the final eyes on it.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah.
try to get an idea of who would have had that responsibility all the way down, kind of like a chain of custody.
Yeah.
So, okay, I appreciate that.
Yep.
All right, so then, Mr. Clerk, since we got that part, I know that we talked about it in the council meeting over and over again and did as best as we could. I thought you did a very good job regarding having the next ballots going out to make sure the residents know that they have to fill out the second ballot, not the first ballot with the creed sticker on it, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we put out that on the publicity as much as we could. So the question is, also for the residents, and so everyone else knows too, once we verified that if the ballot came back, if the resident sent back the first ballot, never sent back the second ballot, the first ballot would be counted, correct?
It would have to be duplicated.
I know,
Yes.
I'm gonna get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we're on the same page, so.
Yeah.
So, what happens is that the resident did not, if they did not get the second one, or just forgot, or whatever reason, did not send that back, it was the clerk's job in your department to take the original ballot that they sent, and then physically bubble in everything and copy it to the second ballot, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Once I found that out, I went to legal and said that I believe that, I asked for the council to create a special committee in which we can institute and put our people in there to verify and have a third party watch that. Mr. Romer, is that correct? Yes. There you go.
Yes.
Okay, and then I was instructed by the legal department that in order to have oversight and challenging, the council would not be able to have that authority unless those people went through a training that is regulated by the state. Is that accurate?
Yes, I issued a legal opinion on the matter. I don't really want to get into the nitty-gritty of my legal opinion without the council waiving the.
No, of course. I just want to make sure, because there's a lot of bad information. I want to make sure that everybody understands why we're here tonight, because one thing I would like to do is be visiting my brother that is the captain of the United States Navy that came in, and I haven't seen him in at least a year or so, but I'm not there at dinner. I'm here instead because I believe this is that important. I know others people don't feel that way, but we came here tonight because this is something that we made sure we have transparency on and that it doesn't happen again. So I just want to make sure that what happened is the council tried to do an oversight and we could not do it. So that's where we're at on that aspect. So now it's left for the election day. Do you know now, today, how many, because we didn't know until the day of, because we asked, and think I don't want to put words in Councilman Abraham's mouth, but it was on the council meeting, how long is it gonna take you to transfer ballots? And you said, it's so easy because one is you had it labeled, it's the same precinct, same ballot number, is that correct?
I was mistaken when I told you that. It wasn't the same ballot number. It was, we changed because it was a new process. We couldn't coordinate the same ballot numbers from the first one to the second one, so it made it more difficult.
Okay, so when you said it's gonna take 30 seconds on the council meeting, you didn't know that the ballot numbers were gonna be different?
I did not realize the ballot numbers were gonna be different.
Okay, but you also still had to do the same process. Your staff had to open the original one and transcribe them over then?
Correct.
Okay, and how many of those took place?
So, I have it here. Approximately 500 were created. 500 new ballots were created.
Okay, that's not bad, out of 9,500.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Because that number I did not ask, because I didn't know, we didn't know how many, yeah, exactly. Okay. But also, you also had to spend the time to match if you had the second ballot with the green.
Yes.
And that was approximately how many?
Well, how many?
So 500 means that resident failed to fill out the second ballot.
That's right.
So the, right? So
Yeah.
the second question would be is how many of them did you have to go back that filled out the second to dispose, or what's the legal terminology that you use, disregard the first ballot?
Yeah, well, that's the 500.
It's all 500?
Yes, yes,
Okay. Because people could have changed their vote, right? They had the ability to do that.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Any questions on that? Because I want to move to the second. Councilman Enos?
Well, this is actually the second one, so.
Okay, let's get to Councilman Herrick on the first one, because I want to stay pointed on these, so we don't.
I'm not sure what you meant by first versus second one.
Well, these bullet points that we drafted,
I just-
ballots issued and voter ballots issued, that's what we want to talk about.
Okay, I just want, of the staff that was transferring the information from the incorrect ballots to the new ballots, what was the oversight process during that activity?
Okay, since I was a candidate on the ballot, I was not in the room when they did that purposely to make sure that there wasn't any thought that I was there influencing. So perhaps I will have my deputy answer that question for you.
Okay, just state your name and your position, thank you.
Megan Wasminski, Deputy City Clerk. They were hired election workers, they were not clerk staff. We hired a chairperson that we gave extra training to. We created manuals from the state on ballot duplication, as well as what an appropriate mark is. All of that kind of goes together. And then we hired 8 workers, 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans per state law. So they had 1 leader as their chairperson and then 8 workers.
So there is a statutory process for that,
There is,
and you followed it.
I did.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to move to the number and use of limited tabulators in certain precincts. Okay, so how much do the tabulators cost? Because I know we funded those are relatively new.
Okay, that's number 3, so you're skipping 2?
No, I'm still in the bullet points.
Oh.
Non-use of or limited to use of tabulators,
Okay,
because that created the lines and the issues.
so I'm sorry.
You go by your response, no, I'm going by what I. Yeah, so I'm using my notes, so the non-use or limited use of tabulators in certain precincts. So how many precincts do we have?
We had 48 precincts, but we consolidated to 33 for this election.
Right, but I know, before we get there though, how many tabulators do we have?
We have 48 tabulators, and then we do have some extras, extra brains, as we call the top half of them, and extra bins in case some of them go out or malfunction, then we have backups.
Okay, and those are relatively new, is that correct?
No, well, originally we received them in 2017, and they've had some upgrades on the brains once or twice since then, but the mechanics for most of them are basically the 2017 models.
Okay. The point is though, we have funded tabulator for every single precinct, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so that means if you go in and there's, where I'm at 31, 32, there's 2 precincts. I put in where mine is.
Yeah, yeah,
When I went this time, there was only 1 tabulator.
yes,
Okay, who made that decision?
I did.
Okay, what was the rationale to not use the tabulators? Because they're paid for, right? They're not on lease or anything.
No, they're paid for, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we knew that when we have lines of any kind, it's not at the tabulator. The lines are at the processing points. So we looked at the numbers for the past 2 or 3 or 4 years. We know that elections during city elections have the fewest amount of people. So we're thinking in the future that we're gonna get to a point where we're gonna have to do some consolidation. So we thought this was the best time to see if consolidation would be an option for us to do it in the future. And so we decided to look at the locations and the number of people that were gonna vote, and decided this would be the time to test that theory. And so that's why we decided to consolidate, I think 13 or 14 out of the 16 dual precincts.
My understanding is that there was only 2 precincts that you had 2 tabulators.
That's correct, yeah.
And they were Salina?
Salina and McDonald's.
Okay, which both have historically low turnout, we'll get to that as well, but that was your decision as well, right?
Well, I would disagree with you on that, but we can talk about it.
Well, I mean, the numbers don't lie, right? The numbers are there. I mean, you chose to put one at Salina but not at Bryant.
We put one at McDonald's, because we thought that that would be the number one turnout, and it was the number one turnout in the whole city of Dearborn.
Okay, good. But you chose not use all the tabulators, because in your opinion, you still stand by that, right? Because that wasn't the bottleneck issue, as you're saying, that wasn't the issue.
I'm saying that the bottleneck was not at the tabulator. We had some long lines, but they weren't at the tabulator. A good example of that, Council President, would
Yes.
also be the early voting. When we had hundreds of people in line for early voting on that last day, when we had 1,200 people, but there was only 8 to 15 people at any one time at the tabulators. But there was 100 plus in line. It wasn't at the tabulator, it was processing them to get to the tabulator.
Okay, fair. So let me ask you, does state law or process or procedure have any different staffing level when you have 2 tabulators versus 1?
Well, there's more people in the room typically when there's 2 tabulators, because we like to have 6 people for each precinct. That's the goal. We have to, by law, have 3 people per precinct. We try to staff it at 6 people per precinct.
Okay, so my question is that if it was like it was in the past, and then, so we know too, you have been talking about consolidation, and you actually asked the council to consolidate precincts in the past, and the council rejected that.
I asked, yes, they have rejected.
Did the council reject it?
This time?
This
The first time.
this was a procedural aspect you took on yourself.
Yeah.
To eliminate the tabulators and bring another one, because you don't feel that it's the bottleneck aspect, right?
Correct.
But you have brought maps to the council in the past, because I'm on it.
Yeah.
And to try to show that we need to consolidate precincts and make less places to vote.
I firmly believe that.
Okay, so the question is, statutory and legally wise, if there was 2 tabulators, were you supposed to, in the precinct, are you supposed to have a certain amount of people?
No.
So that's not the issue?
No.
3.
Well, like I said,
You have
3.
to divide by precinct.
Yeah, 3 per
So you
precinct,
can
not
have
by
6
tabulator.
tabulators by precinct. You have to have 3 at the precinct.
Yes,
Regardless of the number of tabulators?
yes.
Okay, so what you're indicating is that the fact that you made the decision to not have the tabulators that we have, you left them in the warehouse, we didn't bring them out.
Correct.
Okay, but that didn't cause the bottleneck, in your opinion?
No.
It was the people, the people you had working?
After we reviewed, again, we were thinking this would be the time to try this out to see if that's what we're gonna do in the future. After that, after it was all over and we had an opportunity to survey the chair people, it was determined that maybe we should have had 1 tabulator but 2 tables. If we had 2 tables, that would have made the line go twice as fast, because we'd have 2 tables circulating people through that line instead of 1 table. So the determination that we thought after our analysis of this election was, hey, we can still think about just the 1 tabulator, but now let's think about having 2 tables for that 1 tabulator to make the line go faster.
Okay, just 1 second, Councilman. But as the city attorney is indicating, because the precinct in, let's say where I'm at,
Okay.
is 31, 32, you need, because there's 2, forget the tabulator, you have to have 6 people there, is that correct? 3 for each precinct, is that correct, Mr. Roman?
Yeah, you have a split in the same building. 31's gonna have 3, 32's gonna have 3.
Yeah, but when we combine the precincts, it makes it 1 precinct, it doesn't make it 2
Well, but
precincts.
his hypothetical is you have 31 and 32 there.
Yeah.
There's 2 precincts in the building, you would have 3 for 31, 3 for 32.
Yeah.
If you were to
Yeah.
combine that, it would just be 3.
Yes, correct.
Okay, but you didn't do that anyways, you didn't just have 3 people,
We
correct?
had 6.
You still had the same
We
number?
still had 6, yes.
Okay. And you never had 2 tables before in the past?
Yeah.
Like you're saying that you've.
No, we never tried it with 1 tabulator and 2 tables. We didn't try that this time.
Okay, but when you had 2 tabulators, you had 2 tables?
Correct.
And you didn't think when you went down to 1 tabulator that you should have 2 tables, because that was the bottleneck, as you're indicating?
Well, we realize that now, yes, but that wasn't the case everywhere. We had places that came in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th place as far as the number of people that went through there for the day and didn't have any problems at all, no lines, nothing. So it was the personnel that worked at certain locations that weren't able to handle that.
Okay, Councilman Avery.
So, you mentioned there, the top four, can you tell us what those 4 precincts were? Or let me put it this way, what voting locations those were?
Well, like I said, McDonald was number 1, Hague was number 2.
Okay, well, I'll stop you there, because I knew that already.
Okay.
So I went to Hague,
Yeah,
and I can tell you there were lines there, because I voted there. When
Yeah.
I got there, there were 7 people in front of me and 12 people behind me. And there was 1 laptop that they were onboarding voters to get ballots,
right.
and they were fully consumed with spoiling a ballot from 1 voter. So I have a difficulty believing that there were not lines when I know there were lines. And I know there were lines all day, I'm not saying that, but I will tell you this from my observation. I'll call it the onboarding, getting a voter through the line to sign a voting certification, showing the ID, scanning the ID, and getting a ballot in their hands. As a layperson, not an election official, it's obviously the bottleneck. I don't think anybody ever waited in line anywhere to put their ballot in a tabulator,
Right.
ever, since we've had tabulators.
Right.
The bottleneck is always the onboarding process until you get the ballot into the voter's hands. And decreasing that process, the number of election workers in half at the precincts that you combined, I mean, I think there should have been obvious that there were gonna be challenges with voters waiting in line. And I think it doesn't necessarily, the lines aren't necessarily because the onboarding process is so difficult. It's dealing with the exceptions that if anything stops the process, a voter's not in the system, their ID doesn't match, they've already been assigned an absentee ballot, or they have a spoiled ballot, there's no workaround. They're stuck. That voter is stuck at that PC, at least from what I understand, until that election poll worker gets it resolved. And while they're trying to get that resolved, the line is queuing up. That's just my observation, and I think that should have been apparent before the election, that we should have had the same number of election workers at each location that we've had traditionally, regardless of the number of tabulators.
But it sounds like you did, though.
We did.
You did have the same.
No, you did have Hague. You did not have 2 onboarding tables at Hague.
No, right, you're saying that if we had 12 people at Hague beforehand with 2 tabulators, we still should have had 12 people at Hague with 1 tabulator.
If your goal is to get people through the line, yes, that's what I'm saying.
But you said that you did have the same number of people, you just reduced the
No,
tables.
they reduced them from 12 to 6.
Because we combined precincts.
They
we
treated
reduced
2
it.
precincts
Yes.
as if it was 1
Correct.
precinct.
That's what I'm, yeah. and-
Yes, that's right.
All right.
But we had the same number of voters in that location.
Yes,
At Hague, you had the almost exact same number of voters with half the number of workers that you had 4 years ago. And which causes waiting. I mean, we have to be a little bit of common sense here, that the same number of voters being processed with 6 workers, in my math, will take twice as long as the same number of voters with 12 workers. That's just common sense to me, but that to me was, again, as an observer, not an expert, is what caused at least the perception of waiting. Voters believing that they were in long lines.
yes, and I think, I agree with you that, I think that a lot of people were in lines that were never in lines before. We, as you mentioned, you saw maybe 7 to 12 or 15 people in line. And we moved quickly in most cases to get through those lines. I don't think.
I
too
think
many
we moved
people-
quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, and I'll just say this and I'll let you finish.
Okay.
I think it moves quickly if there are no exceptions.
Yeah.
The minute somebody's ID doesn't match, or they're not found in that precinct, or they walk to the machine and they have to spoil their ballot because they voted for 8 council people,
Yep.
and they walk back to the table and say, I need a new ballot, in a limited onboarding system, that's a failure in my point. It bottlenecks the process to a screeching stop, because nobody can get through that line.
They've been trained that if there was an issue with anybody, to pull that person aside and keep the line moving. That's what we've told them in training many, many times. I've sat through that training. I know what they were.
I can only tell you what I saw, and it happened right in front of me.
Okay, I believe.
And so I
believe you.
And they were all friendly, and they were all polite and courteous. I don't want to think like it was a systematic failure. I'm just telling you
Yep.
personally what I observed when I walked in.
Okay, very good.
All right, thank you, Council. I know we have a couple council people waiting, but just to clarify, so this election, you did reduce the number of staff?
Yes.
Okay, and we did ask, because many times, did you need more staffing, did we need more volunteers, remember, in the council meetings?
Yes,
We were paying $257 for the day,
yes,
is that correct?
yes.
Remember, I asked that, and you said we're good.
We were good until we had the call-offs. We didn't expect the call-offs that we had this time.
Okay, but that's, I know, but, so you had an unusual number of call-offs that you did in the past?
Absolutely, we did.
All right, but whose job is to offset that? It's not a budgetary aspect, right? You have the funding for it.
You cannot, when people call off the day before and the day of the election, 10, 15, maybe more people, the money issue is not the issue. We also scheduled 10 backups.
The money issue is not the issue because we funded it.
You funded it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the issue is that you had more people call off than you anticipated.
Plus, we had the 10 backups to go along with that too, and it still didn't help us. It didn't help us, because some of the backups that we called also didn't show up. So that's an issue that goes to, and we can talk about this in a lot more detail, but that's an issue that goes back to what we pay and how long of a day it is, are we paying enough, and are we getting the right people?
But we asked those questions and you said yes. We asked, are we paying enough? So you
But
think
our-
$257 a day is not enough?
For a 15-hour day, maybe not.
But did you request more?
I did not request.
Okay, so, I mean,
I'm saying now that we know what happened, maybe after analyzing, maybe.
yeah, or maybe you just picked the wrong people too. I mean, there's a lot of maybes, right? I mean, it's not always the pay.
Or
There's a
maybe-
lot of people that do this because they feel a civic duty to aspect it. The fact that that was an issue, we continued to ask during council meetings, telling people that we have positions, but you reduced the number that you had.
We had to reduce the number that we had because it's impossible to get 350 people to work on an election in one day and get the quality of people that we need to process the things that Mr. Abraham was talking about quickly and easily. We need good people, and it's hard to find 350 good people.
Okay, Councilman, Enos.
Have you combined precincts, for and were these type of problems? with
No,
combining?
this was our first attempt to combine.
This is the first time?
Yes.
Okay. But then also with the call-offs?
Of course.
Do you have workers on call in case people call off?
Yeah, we had 10 people on call.
Okay, and then are they paid even if they don't come in? If they're-
I'm not sure how we determined, did we pay them? Okay, yeah.
But they didn't show up. You said that the.
Well, we're not gonna pay them if they don't show up, but if we didn't call them,
I need to get the clarification on that. Yeah, stand for it. That's okay, no, we want to find out, I think it's a great question. So we had 10 people as backups.
Correct, and we negotiated a fee compensation of $25 to be on hold for us. But of the 10, we had several that never showed up per our direction.
And if they don't show up, they don't get paid?
They don't pay, exactly.
Thank you.
Councilman Pierce?
Thank you, Council President. I've got a question for Mr. Clerk then. Are there certain times of the election day that are busier than others?
Absolutely.
And I would imagine then probably when you first open up, you're getting people that are on their way to work.
Mhm.
Will vote probably around lunchtime.
Yes.
And then probably again, and I'm surmising you'll have this information, I don't, after 5 o'clock or so, when
Yes.
people get off of work,
Yes.
and they have until 8 o'clock. It's my understanding, if you're still in line, when the polls are technically gonna close at 8, anybody still in line will still have the opportunity to vote.
Yes.
Okay. My question is then, would you have any additional personnel, knowing that those certain times of the day are going to be busier, and to make sure to be able to accommodate longer lines, that you have more personnel working during certain times of the day?
No.
I'm just trying to understand.
So we tell the chair people to try to organize the lunches so they're not during those busiest times. So if we know we're gonna be busy at a certain precincts between 11 and 12, we're hoping that people would take their lunch before 11 or after 12, so not to disrupt the flow.
Okay, the reason why I'm bringing it up is just from the prior comments that were made too. I also and my wife voted at Hague Elementary, or not Hague, I'm sorry, at Bryant, and had no problem whatsoever getting in and out, except there was a problem at Bryant earlier.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that would be part of the question that,
Well,
Council
we're getting to
President
that, yeah, we're gonna get to that as far as why it was shut down, but I appreciate it, yeah. So, Mr. Clerk, my understanding is, so your management of the aspect of lunches and procedure is, because the council's, Paris's question is, I believe, is that there are certain times where there's more uptake, like lunch and dinner. You're indicating that you did not set like a protocol that said no lunches at between 11 and 12. You left it up to
The chair people, and a lot of chair people have been in the same chair person at the same spot for a number of years. We let them determine what they feel is best, because they know their precinct better than I would. I wouldn't know if their biggest rush is between 11 to 12 or 12 to 1 or 1 to 2. We let them determine what the best time is for the lunch.
Okay, can I have the deputy up real quick? Just, because I think this is a good point, that, you know, depends on who's managing it, but do you feel that there is, regarding this, as far as process, do you feel that there was any issue during the high point of times when people were at lunch?
So election day is not something that I manage. It's managed by our election supervisor, because I
Okay.
manage early voting and absentee.
Okay, thank you, then we'll, thank you for that. So can we have, and just your name and title?
Bianca, I'm the election supervisor.
Okay, so do you want me to repeat the question, or?
Yes, please.
All right, so regarding the process as far as making a hard, fast step rule, the clerk is indicating that the precinct chair determines what's the best time. Did you see that that was a concern, that there was people gone during those times? As Councilman Paris is saying that was an issue at Bryant, but that's only one of, 48 locations, 48 precincts.
So if I can
50.
speak kind of on my experience too, I started at the precincts as a worker, and each precinct is different, I will say, based on when some get busier and some don't. So we do, as someone who has worked out there, in my experience, we allow that for the chair people. We don't put a hard stop on these this time or this time. However, we do ask them that they take into consideration the busy times. If it's something that we need to put into the manual, like no breaks at all during this time, we can do. And as far as the 3 versus 6 versus workers, can I speak on that?
I would love to hear.
Okay, so we are by law mandated to have 3 people in each precinct. Last election, we tried.
That's the minimum.
Minimum. is
That
3.
means if you don't have the money, that's required by law. I just want to make sure everybody ends, so it's not an issue, because thank God our taxes are very high and our residents
Right,
pay.
right.
So they expect the higher quality service, so
Yes.
I just want to make sure that's the bare minimum. So if we were in any other city that wasn't funded as strong as the city of Dearborn, didn't pay the taxes we paid, state law requires 3.
Correct, there's 3 stations. And then, so for the last election, we tried to get at least 5 everywhere. With the consolidation, we did bump this up to 6. With everything that had happened and hearing that there were some lines, some of the precincts who were consolidated, we have very small turnout for some of our double precincts. At our higher ones, we should have had the double EPB, probably, like we have said, because that's where the bottleneck is. But we did try and stack with the 1 extra, and in the trainings, I did say, if anyone has, like Councilman Abraham said, a AV ballot out there, always pull that person to the side, and that sixth person would call us on the phone, we would take care of all of that information, that person would then go immediately back to the computer. If that was not done, then I need to be alerted of that, of course. However, I do know actually the chairperson of Hague is here. She's great. I would hope, which I can ask her, if it was always taken off to the side just so that we could keep that line moving. We took all this into consideration. I don't want anyone to think, oh, this stuff wasn't thought about. The local elections are always our lowest turnout, and so we thought this would be a good opportunity to try. We absolutely now see our busier precincts, we have to have 2 EPP stations, which is the front station, if you're not sure what that is, it's the check-in station.
No, I appreciate you clarifying. You used an acronym, but what you're
Yeah,
indicating
sorry,
is.
it's electronic poll book station, which is where you are at the computer. Some of our other double precincts, like St. Kateri, was still one of our lower turnouts, so I don't think that's necessary in places like that where they had no lines at all, very low turnout still. But I will say, from now on, this isn't something we're not taking serious or taking notes of. I have notes, reviews from everybody, and anyone who had a line or there was problems, we're taking all those into consideration. We will absolutely, which you can only, just so you know, you can only do this temporary precinct consolidation within a double precinct, within a polling location for a local election, which gets approved and has to be approved through election commission. You can't do that for state or federal. So this wouldn't be able to happen again until the next local election as well. So.
Thank you. Yep, Councilman Abraham.
So, just for clarification then, because you mentioned you did have notes and that there were lines, which is different than what we heard earlier. How many precincts did you actually have evidence that there were lines of people waiting?
2.
Just
That I'm
2?
so, well, can I explain on this a little bit? We have gotten many calls from people like, oh, there are lines, there are lines, there are lines. I was out at the precincts almost all day, because I do manage the precincts. There are 31 locations, so I didn't make it everywhere, every time, and one person can't be in 31 locations. Everywhere I went, except for a couple precincts where it was quick or no line at all, so I didn't spend much time there, just made sure procedures were being followed and went to the next precinct. It was Woodward.
Yeah.
Woodward and Hague had some lines, and Salina at one point, which is still a double precinct. At Salina, it is very common, I've been working in elections since 2016 or 2017, I still haven't narrowed that down. Salina at the one precinct always gets heavy at a certain time of the day, which is another reason why we didn't consolidate that one. I stayed throughout that rush. We put Jamie and Isabella, 2 of our workers from the clerk department, out as soon as we got calls that there were lines. If we sent, whenever we got that call, we would go out, check. If there was a line, we sent one of our clerk staff out there to stay until the line was taken care of, and they didn't leave. Jamie was there for quite some time. Isabella came and went to whatever, I think Woodward. Yes, Woodward is
Yeah.
where it was. And Isabella would come and go if they got busy.
So this is good because you have the history.
But those are the 2, just so you know, that we had actual proof that the one, because anywhere we went, there wasn't a line.
How would you compare this local November election to the November local elections in the past you worked, as far as the number of calls about lines, whether they were valid or not? I don't ever remember people complaining about lines at a local election.
Yeah, either do I.
So I'm of the mind, unless you convince me otherwise, that obviously this change caused some waiting. I mean, I think we have to start with reality. We all have to agree what really happened.
Right.
I'm not sure we're admitting that there were lines or there weren't lines or people were waiting or not waiting. I'm of the belief when people call and say I'm waiting, that they're probably waiting. And I think the fact that the clerk's office received calls of lines and waiting should indicate that there was probably lines and waiting.
Correct.
In more than one or 2 precincts, more than just one precinct in Salina in the evening, and more than just Woodworth.
And Hague for a short amount of time. However,
Yes.
when I can't say that someone was lying. I'm not trying to say someone wasn't waiting in line. I do think, and correct,
Well,
we
I'm
have to
saying
go based off
going-
of reality.
Let me just reiterate, and I think we're on the same page, so. I think when it gets to the level where people are calling, it's different than people are just standing there waiting because there's 6 people in front of them and they're irritated. I think when it elevates to, I'm going to call because this is not normal, I think that indicates a new problem. That's all I'm
Which is why
trying to.
we never got a call and said, it's probably fine. As soon as we got a call for anything, I went out, out, Isabella went out, Jamie went out, somebody went out. Anywhere that actually had a line with more than a few people, somebody stayed until that line was taken care of. It wasn't something that we weren't taking seriously.
So it-
And when it came, I'm sorry.
So it seems like it was a people problem, right? Because if you put an extra person there, the queue went down, right?
Correct. Which,
I think that's our reality.
Yes.
I think if we all agree on that, we're closer to a solution for the future.
well, if I could say, so the solution, I think, would be, again, which we couldn't temporarily consolidate until the next local election. Let's say this election is tomorrow, and we know of the errors that happen. I would 110%, wherever there's a higher voter turnout, have an extra EPV, without a shadow of a doubt. We did not do this election. That would have eliminated anything that had happened. Not saying that there wasn't lines in some places, completely taking accountability for that, there definitely was. In reality,
Right, but you also, I don't want to cut you off, but you also don't